There was a time when the drive-in theater wasn't just a place to watch movies, but a cornerstone of American culture. It was a place where families piled into station wagons with snacks from home, teenagers took dates on summer nights, and entire towns gathered under the glow of a giant outdoor screen. Drive-ins represented freedom, romance, and the magic of watching movies under the stars. But today, they're mostly relics of the past, with only a few hundred remaining in the United States. So what happened to America's drive-in theaters? To answer that, we need to go back to where it all started and look at how they shaped pop culture. The very first drive-in theater opened in Camden, New Jersey, on June 6, 1933. It was the brainchild of Richard Hollingshead, who wanted to combine the booming popularity of movies with the rising car culture of the early 20th century. He experimented with movie projectors in his backyard, testing how to angle screens and arrange cars so everyone could see the film. When he perfected the concept, Hollingshead patented the drive-in theater idea and opened the very first one, charging 25 cents per car and 25 cents per person. It was an instant hit. In the 1930s and 40s, drive-ins started to grow, but the real explosion came after World War II. By the 1950s, the automobile had become the symbol of American life. Suburban families were buying cars in record numbers. Highways were being built, and the idea of the open road represented freedom and prosperity. Drive-in theaters tapped into that spirit perfectly. Families could load the kids into the car, skip the expensive babysitter, and enjoy a double feature for cheap. It wasn't just about movies, it was an entire outing. Parents could relax, kids could wear pajamas, and there was no need to sit in silence like in a traditional theater. At their peak in the 50s and 60s, there were over 4,000 drive-in theaters across America. They became iconic parts of small towns and suburbs. Many drive-ins offered more than just movies. They had playgrounds for kids, snack bars with hamburgers and milkshakes, and even mini golf or small rides. It was a social experience as much as a cinematic one. For teenagers, drive-ins were something else entirely. They were the go-to spot for date nights, especially with the privacy of the car. The drive-in quickly became part of youth culture, with its reputation for romance and the classic image of young couples sharing popcorn in the backseat. Drive-ins weren't just places to watch movies, they were cultural landmarks. Movies like Grease and American Graffiti immortalized the experience, and countless songs and commercials of the era celebrated the drive-in as a symbol of youth, summer nights, and freedom. It was an experience that combined entertainment, car culture, and social life all in one. But the golden age of drive-ins wouldn't last forever. By the late 60s and 70s, the cracks started to show. One major factor was real estate. Drive-in theaters required massive plots of land to accommodate all the cars and the giant screen. As suburban areas grew and land prices went up, many drive-in owners realized they could make more money by selling their land to developers for shopping centers, apartment complexes, or other businesses. At the same time, indoor movie theaters started to rise in popularity. Multiplex cinemas began popping up in malls and urban centers, offering multiple screens, air conditioning, and a controlled environment. Unlike drive-ins, indoor theaters didn't have to worry about weather ruining the experience, and they could show movies year-round. The convenience of indoor theaters began pulling audiences away from outdoor screens. Another blow came with the rise of color television and home entertainment in the 70s and 80s. Suddenly, people could watch movies from the comfort of their living rooms. The VCR made movie rentals possible, meaning you didn't have to leave home for a movie night. Drive-ins, with their limited hours and weather dependence, started to feel outdated compared to the growing world of home video and cable TV. There was also a cultural shift happening. Drive-ins had once been a wholesome family destination, but as attendance dropped, some theaters tried to stay afloat by showing exploitation films or low-budget horror films. This new reputation as a haven for B movies and R-rated fare alienated families, which had been their core audience for decades. By the 1990s, the number of drive-in theaters had plummeted from thousands to just a few hundred. Many of the remaining ones struggled to stay profitable, often operating only seasonally. The rise of big-budget indoor cinemas, complete with surround sound and stadium seating, made it harder for drive-ins to compete. Yet, despite their decline, drive-ins never completely disappeared. They held on to a nostalgic charm that kept them alive in certain communities. For many, they represented a simpler time. warm summer nights, classic cars, and a communal movie experience that felt special. Drive-ins also remained popular in rural areas, where land was cheaper and where they could serve as a local gathering spot. Pop culture has never forgotten drive-ins. Movies like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Twister, and Cars all feature scenes at drive-ins, keeping the imagery alive for younger generations. Even Quentin Tarantino has spoken about his love for the drive-in era, often referencing it in his films. The 2000s brought a surprising twist. Digital projection technology threatened to finish off the remaining drive-ins. When Hollywood began switching from traditional 35 film reels to digital projection in the early 2010s, many drive-in owners faced a tough choice. Converting to digital projectors cost tens of thousands of dollars, money that small family-owned theaters often didn't have. Some launched Kickstarter campaigns or hosted fundraising events to survive. Those that couldn't make the upgrade were forced to close. But in 2020, drive-ins had an unexpected resurgence. When the pandemic shut down indoor theaters, drive-ins suddenly became the safest way to enjoy movies on a big screen. Families and friends could watch films while socially distanced in their own cars, and many drive-ins saw record attendance during that time. Some even hosted concerts, comedy shows, and live events broadcasted on the big screen. For a brief moment, drive-ins were back in the spotlight, reminding people why they were once so popular. Even after the pandemic, there's still a small but loyal fan base keeping drive-ins alive. Today, there are around 300 to 400 drive-in theaters still operating in the United States. Many of these are family-owned businesses that have been passed down through generations. They're often community landmarks, hosting not just movies, but events like flea markets, festivals, or car shows. The cultural impact of drive-ins is undeniable. They shaped how generations of Americans experienced movies and gave rise to an entire era of pop culture tied to cars, music, and summer nights. The classic image of a drive-in screen with cars lined up under a glowing sunset is still one of the most iconic symbols of mid-20th century America. Even modern filmmakers and streaming platforms have borrowed from the drive-in aesthetic. Pop-up outdoor screenings have become trendy in cities, with inflatable screens and food trucks recreating the experience for nostalgic millennials and Gen Z audiences. It's proof that the drive-in still holds a special place in people's heart. So what happened to America's drive-in theaters? They were victims of changing technology, rising real estate costs, and shifting entertainment habits. But they also live on as a powerful reminder of how moviegoing used to be a communal, memorable event. In a world of streaming and on-demand content, the drive-in experience, watching a movie under the stars with a crowd of strangers, feels like something worth preserving. Drive-ins may never return to their 1950s heyday, but their legacy is everywhere. Every time a movie night is held outdoors, every time a car commercial leans into retro Americana, and every time a film references that iconic setting, the drive-in spirit lives on. For those lucky enough to have a drive-in theater nearby, it's more than just a place to watch movies. It's a living piece of history, a connection to a time when entertainment felt a little more magical. And maybe that's why drive-ins will never truly die. Even if their numbers keep shrinking, they'll always hold a unique spot in American culture. A place where the magic of cinema meets the romance of the open road, and where, just for a few hours, you can step back in time to experience movies the way that they were meant to be seen. Big, bold, and under a starry sky. Like, comment, and subscribe for daily history and culture content.